गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय um, am I also the co-host, Prabhu? Can I share my screen?
Yes, just give me a second. My co-host. Okay.
Perfect, thank you. Um, so let me share my screen. Yes, do you see it? So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Samam Bonam, chapter 32. So, so before we start reading, maybe I can just give a quick intro in case someone just joined us, sort of in the middle of like someone who hasn't been following us for the previous sort of series in this Bhagavatam classes. By the way,
Yes,
before
we join this movement every day, Gautam Prabhu.
by the way,
Brings up this.
before we start, I'd like to seek blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas, especially our Adi Purusha Prabhu and other senior Vaishnavas who are present here. Uh, we are in this chapter 32, which is part of the Panchadhyay, which is such an elevated topic. So I need blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas, and I have no shame in saying this is way above my pay grade. The dealings of Radharani and Krishna, the Gopis and Krishna and Madhurya Rasa. This is way above my league. So I seek blessings of all Vaishnavas. Uh, so that we may be able to sort of discuss this topic in a tasteful way. So just a quick recap uh, in case someone who's just joining us. We are in the middle of the 5 chapters, the Rasa Panchadhyay, 5 chapters of Rasa Leela. This is in one sense the heart of Bhagavatam. So in the previous chapters we discussed about how Krishna goes to the banks of the Yamuna and then he starts playing his flute and he calls all the gopis and the gopis rush to meet Krishna in the dead of the night. And when they get there, Krishna sort of tries to send them back, saying, "It's not appropriate for you young girls to come in the middle of the night and associate with a boy like myself." And the gopis get really hurt, considering they risked so much to be with Krishna. They feel really hurt. They lash out at Krishna. And then as the conversation unfolds, Krishna sort of agrees to sort of sport with them in the middle of the night. They have the rasa dance going on, and in the middle of the rasa dance, Krishna leaves the gopis Krishna leads the gopis to go with Radharani, and all the gopis are distraught, seeing that Krishna has left them, and they look around to look for signals and clues of where he could have gone, and they see 2 sets of footprints, one of belonging to Krishna, and the other one they're thinking, who is this mystery gopi? And surely that's our Radharani. So they see these 2 sets of footprints, and at one point, as those footprints are going, they see only one set of footprints. The other set of footprints are gone. So then they sort of try to investigate the situation, and they come to this conclusion that probably Krishna has taken the other gopi Radharani in his arms, and he's carrying her in his arms. That's why they only see one set of footprints. And then as the footprints are going along, they see that in the footprint the toe, like the heel is missing, so it's just a toe. Then they come to the conclusion that okay, maybe Krishna sort of stretching to sort of uh, uh, pluck flowers from the tree to sort of decorate Radharani. And in this way, they're going through a lot of anxiety, trying to sort of be with Krishna. And then Radharani gets little uh, sort of course, Radharani is in a transcendental state, but for the sake of rasa, it said that Radharani gets a little proud of her association with Krishna, and then Krishna, sensing that, leaves Radharani also. And at this point, Radharani joins the other gopis, and all of them are in search of Krishna, and they're completely in a distraughtful state. They're completely in anguish, trying to look for Krishna. That was the previous chapter, and all of them together they do Sankirtan, and then Krishna finally comes back to their midst. So this is the chapter 32 where Krishna uh, sort of reunites with the gopis. So this, I'll share my screen again. So I just wanted to give a quick recap. This chapter is called the reunion. So we are reading from we're reading texts 1 through 7 today. So I'll just read the English by myself since we're a little short of time. Sukadev Goswami said, O king, having thus sung and spoken their hearts out in various charming ways, the gopis began to weep loudly. They were very eager to see Lord Krishna. Text 2. Then Lord Krishna, a smile on his lotus face, appeared before the gopis, wearing a garland and a yellow garment. He directly appeared as one who can bewilder, the mind of Cupid, who himself bewilders the minds of ordinary people. Text 8. When the gopis saw that their dearmost Krishna had returned to them, they all stood up at once, and out of their affection for him, their eyes bloomed wide. It was as if the air of life had re-entered their bodies. Text 4. One gopi joyfully took Krishna's hand between her folded palms. So, just a quick point. Anyway, I'll finish reading and then I'll interject my points. One gopi joyfully took Krishna's hand between her folded palms, and another placed his arm, anointed with sandalwood paste, on her shoulder. Text 5. A slender gopi respectfully took in her joined hands the betel nut he had chewed, and another gopi, burning with desire, put his lotus feet on her breast. Text 6. One gopi, beside herself with loving anger, bit her lips and stared at him with frowning eyebrows, as if to wound him with her harsh glances. Text 7. Another gopi looked with unblinking eyes upon his lotus face, but even after deeply relishing its sweetness, she did not feel satiated. Just as a mystic Just as mystic saints are never satiated when meditating upon the Lord's feet. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the analogy given here of saintly persons meditating upon the Lord's feet is only partially applicable, since the ecstasy the gopis felt when Krishna came back was actually unparalleled. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also reveals that this particular gopi is the most fortunate of all, Srimati Radharani. So we're reading only from text 1 to 7, right? So anyway, I'd like to start. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahim Sadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Radha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakanvitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopita Kakanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So again we're reading from Canto 10, chapter 32, called the Reunion, and this is the part where Krishna had previously left all the gopis and Radharani, and now he comes back into their fold. So this chapter introduces different gopis one at a time and how they react when Krishna comes back. So it's really fascinating to see how our acharyas are actually explaining which verse is describing which gopi. So in text 4, it said that one gopi joyfully took Krishna's hand between her folded palms, and another placed his arm, anointed with sandalwood paste, on her shoulder. See, the acharyas explained that actually this is Chandravali and Shamala Gopi. The two gopis are basically being described in this. So one gopi joyfully took Krishna's hand between her folded palms, and another placed his arm. So the another is Shamala. The first one is Chandravali. The other one is Shamala. So, like this, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains the different gopis which are mentioned in these verses. So there's different kinds of gopis as we've read from different books. Like I think in CC and even in Krishna book, there's descriptions. There is like the Nitya Siddha devotees and there's the Sadhana Siddha devotees. So Nitya Siddha devotees are eternally liberated devotees. And sadhana siddha devotees are those devotees who've attained liberation. They were not perfected before, but later they had attained perfections. But Nitya Siddha, they've always been perfect. And in the sadhana, Nitya Siddha and Samprapya Siddha, these are the two categories. And the Samprapya Siddha means those who have attained perfection. And in the Samprapya Siddha, there's two subdivisions. There is Kripa Siddha and there's Sadhana Siddha. So Kripa Siddha devotees are those devotees who have attained perfection by mercy of either Krishna or other acharyas or Vaishnavas. So that's Kripa Siddha devotees. And there is this Sadhana Siddha devotees, or those devotees who have attained liberation by intense practices in their sadhana. So again, there's Nitya Siddha devotees, there's Samprapya Siddha devotees, and on the Samprapya, there's two subcategories, Kripa Siddha and Sadhana Siddha devotees. So our acharyas explain that even among the gopis, there's different kinds of gopis. So in the Nitya Siddha category, there are the gopis who fall in that category. They're like eternally among Krishna's gopis. There's different types of gopis. The Nitya Siddha gopis are those gopis who've always been perfect. Not always, they're always liberated. So those gopis are like Gopakanyas. And there's another category called Devakanyas who are expansions of the Gopakanya gopis. They're like the partial expansions of these Gopakanyas or these principal gopis. And in the sadhana siddha gopis, there's different types of gopis in that category. There's the Rishichari gopi, there's the Shrutichari gopis, and then there's this one category which doesn't have a group. It's called as the unspecified group. So like this, we see among the gopis, there's different types of gopis who are sort of associating with Krishna. And I think in the Krishna book, it's mentioned that when devotees attain perfection, uh, uh, in the material world, one can only get to the stage of bhava. As you all know, there's different stages of progression, right? There's starting from Shraddha, there's Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, and so on. And Anartha Nivritti, Ruchi, Nishta Ruchi, and it goes on till the stage of Bhava and Prema. But in this material world, one can only advance till the stage of Prema. In this material body, one cannot actually experience full-blown Krishna Prema. So when one reaches the stage of Bhava, it is explained that in the next life, one takes birth in Krishna's Bhauma Leelas. Bhauma Leela is basically Krishna's pastimes in earthly Vrindavan. Earthly Vrindavan is known as Bhauma Vrindavan. So in that pastimes, one takes birth in Krishna's pastimes, and from that platform onwards, one goes on to reach the stage of Prema. So all the gopis or all the devotees live at least on that preliminary platform of bhava. So in those gopis, some are those gopis who in the previous lives they've attained perfection, like the Rishichari gopis, or all those rishis who were in the Dandakaranya forest when they saw Lord Ramachandra. They were enraptured seeing his beauty, and they wanted to unite with Lord Ram in a conjugal rasa. And Lord Ram said that in this form you wouldn't be able to associate with me, and besides I have taken a vow of ekapatni vrata, like only in this incarnation I take only one consort, one wife, Sita Devi. But then in the next life they took birth from the wombs of gopis and they became Rishichari gopis. So like this we have Shrutichari gopis, Rishichari gopis, and different gradations of gopis. So even among those Nitya Siddha, so we discuss about how Radharani and all the principal Sakis, they're like the Nitya Siddha gopis. They're not someone who's in their previous lives, they did a lot of austerities and followed strict sadhana, and then they came to the post of being Krishna's principal gopis. So these are Nitya Siddha devotees. They've always been liberated. And in those liberated devotees, the Gopakanyas is the Radharani and all the principal gopis that are being described in these verses from text 1 to 7. And even 8 and 8 describes the other gopis in this principal category. And even among this Nitya Siddha, there's further subdivision of gopis. There's the left wing gopis and there's the right wing gopis. And if you're worried that this is getting too esoteric, don't worry. This is all from Srila Prabhupada's books. So there's the left wing and the right wing gopis. So, so and they have their own characteristics. So it is said that the left wing gopis basically are more they have they're more submissive in their nature. They approach Krishna in a more submissive way, and they please Krishna in that form. They're really submissive and they try to serve Krishna in a really service attitude. In a humble. Apparently, of course, the right wing gopis are also humble, but they're in a more humble way. That's the left wing gopi. And in the left wing camp, Chandravali is the main head of the left wing camp, and she's the competitor of our Srimati Radharani. So not much is discussed of Chandravali. Most of our acharyas, they discuss Radharani. We don't discuss Chandravali much, but of course in some of the esoteric literature like Ujjvala Nilamani and so on, there's descriptions of Chandravali also. But for the most part, our focus is on Radha and Krishna. But in the left wing camp, the head is Chandravali, the rival of Radharani. So, so it is described that in uh, text 4, actually it's Chandravali described. So I'll read the text again. One gopi joyfully took Krishna's hand between her folded palms, that is Chandravali, and another placed his arm, anointed with sandalwood paste, on her shoulder. Um, so this is Shamala. So these are right wing gopis. Sorry, not left wing. I said left wing. So these are right wing gopis they approach Krishna in a more submissive way, in a more so what happened is, just to give you more context, when Krishna disappeared, a lot of the gopis, they were really distressed, and part of them felt hurt and anger, feminine anger. So when Krishna came back, there's these two gopis, right? The left wing and right wing gopis. So the left wing gopis are really fiery gopis, like especially Lalita Saki. She's known for her temper. Every time Krishna sort of tries to play a smart one on Radharani, Lalita sort of steps in the forefront and she'll chastise and she'll blast Krishna. Do you not know who our Radharani is? How dare you do these things to our Radharani? And she'll, in a feminine temper, she'll just blast Krishna left and right. And they'll protect Radharani. They have a really protective nature towards Radharani because Krishna is a prankster. He's always playing pranks. He's always, here and there roaming around. So, so the left wing gopis are really fiery. So when Krishna reappeared in their midst, the right wing gopis immediately approached Krishna because they're more subservient. They were ready to forego their uh, ego. It's called man. In Sanskrit, it's called man. Man is the feminine ego. And it's different from the way we use the word ego. This is part of this is what further enhances the relationship of the gopis with Krishna. So this feminine ego is known as man. Just like a, in the mundane sense, a female lover is upset with her lover, she sort of look the other direction, or she won't talk, she won't respond to the calls and so on. That's the feminine ego. Feminine, she wants her lover to pacify her. Of course, this is in a mundane sense. Our mundane love stories are all perverted and with a tinge of inebriety, but the spiritual relationships, they're all pure. So all of the mundane qualities that come from the spiritual, so in the spiritual sense also, the gopis have this man, or the feminine ego. So the left wing gopis, they don't approach Krishna when Krishna comes back because they have their ego. They want Krishna to come to them. They don't want to go to Krishna. They want Krishna to come to them and pacify them. So the left wing gopis, they stay back, but the right wing gopis immediately approach Krishna. So the descriptions that are now being given is of the right wing gopis is Chandravali and Shamala. They first approach Krishna. Chandravali approaches Krishna with folded palms, and Shamala Gopi, she puts Krishna's arm on her shoulder, and then she sort of anoints his arm with sandalwood paste. And then further, it is described in text 5 that a slender gopi respectfully took in her joined hands the betel nut that Krishna had chewed. So that's Padma Gopi. And another gopi, burning with desire, put his lotus feet on her breast. And this is Shaibya. So this Vishwanath Chakravarti describes that this is Padma and Shaibya that is being described in uh, text 5. So like this, different gopis on one side, two gopis are approaching, and another side, another few gopis are approaching Krishna. They're really eager to serve Krishna since Krishna was absent. From their association, now they're really eager to be with Krishna, unite with Krishna, serve Krishna in a submissive way. So they try to please Krishna in a submissive way. These are the right wing gopis. And on text 6, we see that one gopi, beside herself with loving anger, bit her lips and stared at him with frowning eyebrows, as if to wound him with her harsh glances. So actually, it is said that this is Radharani. I had to I had to do some research into Vishwanath's commentaries. I had two different versions, and it's not. I had to read them again and again to sort of finally see that it's actually text 6 is Radharani, not text 7. So in text 6, it is said that uh, this one gopi, and one of the word that is given is like kata. In the Sanskrit, it is said that I'll read the Sanskrit. Eka bhru kutim abadya prema samrambha vivala granti vaikshat katakshepshay sandasta dashana chada. So kata is sidelong glances. So text 6, the translation is one gopi beside herself with loving anger, bit her lips and stared at him with frowning eyebrows, as if to wound him with her harsh glances. So in the Sanskrit, you see the word kata or sidelong glances. What that means is this one gopi, which is Radharani. Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that this one gopi is our own Radharani. she's looking with sidelong glances. What does sidelong glances mean? Meaning she's not directly looking at Krishna. She's looking like in a indirect way. She's looking, but she's not looking. She's really angry, like at Krishna. Like, how could you leave us? Do you not know how much pain you put us through? So like this, she's looking with her angry emotion. She's biting her lip and she's giving with her harsh glances, as if with her glance she wants to sort of, you know, burn Krishna. Like in a material way, when you're angry with someone, we like through our eyes, we try to sort of convey certain emotions in our material anger. But in this text, Radharani is experiencing spiritual emotions. So this text is actually Radharani. It's described that it's Radharani who's uh, and again in text 6 we see that this gopi hasn't approached Krishna. It said that the translation says she's beside herself with loving anger. She bit her lips and stared at him with frowning eyebrows or sidelong looks, as if to wound him with her harsh glance. So it means she hasn't approached Krishna yet. She's still there amidst of other gopis. Some of the gopis are standing back. They're looking at Krishna. Other gopis have approached Krishna. The right wing gopis have approached Krishna, but the left wing gopis, they're like sort of little fiery. So this is Radharani. She hasn't approached Krishna. And then in text 7, it is described that the translation says, another gopi looked with unblinking eyes upon his lotus face. But even after deeply relishing its sweetness, she did not feel satiated. Just as mystic saints are never satiated when meditating upon the Lord's feet. So text 7, it is said that it's the gopi who's being described is actually Lalita Saki in text 7. And Vishwanath Chakravarti gives more explanation of why is it that she's still not satiated. She's looking at Krishna's face. So now what's going on in this drama is there's Radharani who's looking at Krishna in a sidelong way, indirect way, angry, and she's trying to sort of visually wound Krishna with her angry looks. And Krishna is sort of witnessing this. And of all the gopis, Krishna is looking at Radharani, Vishwanath Chakravarti says. He's looking at Radharani, and Krishna is now overcome with some amount of fear and some amount of regret. And he's like, oh my God, Radharani is really angry. And now Lalita Saki is witnessing this. So in text 7, it is Lalita Saki. So she's witnessing this exchange going on, that Krishna is looking at, of all the gopis, he's looking at Radharani specifically, and he's giving her the attention. And this sight is, when Lalita Saki is looking at this sight, she's really relishing this. So it said that another gopi, which is Lalita, looked with unblinking eyes upon his lotus face, but even after deeply relishing its sweetness, she did not feel satiated, because Krishna is looking at Radharani, and he's giving her undivided. And Vishnath explains that at this point, witnessing Radharani's Sanchari Bhav. So Sanchari is this. This is all explained in Nectar Devotion. We won't go into detail because of shortage of time. It is explained of how rasa has different elements, and Rupa Goswami explains of how Rupa Goswami explains rasa. He gives the analogy of waves, ocean, and the waves of the ocean. So rasa is a really, really complicated topic. We'd probably need another discussion, whole another discussion to get into rasa. But Rupa Goswami explains that how there's an ocean, but the ocean is not static. You don't see like ocean like plain, like still. There's waves of the ocean. So rasa is like that. Rasa is like the emotions or the taste that devotees experience when they're sort of dealing with Krishna. So in the ocean, a certain wave rises, it heightens, the emotions are heightened, and then the wave subsides and joins back to the ocean. So certain emotions rise, and then they again sort of merge back to the ocean of the sthai bhavs. The sthai bhav is this fixed emotion that the devotees are experiencing towards Krishna. So certain waves rise. It starts with vibhav, or like a certain stimulus. You know, you look at something stimulates Krishna, and then vibhav comes, and from vibhav comes anubhav, or that which follows the stimulus, and from anubhav comes sattvika bhav, or like the eightfold manifestations. So anubhav is like the voluntary reaction to your stimulus of love, and sattvika bhav is like the involuntary reactions, the bodily reactions in love that you experience. So like this, when Vibhav and Anubhav constitute the Sanchari Bhav. So when Krishna's witnessing Radharani's Sanchari Bhav, it reflects in his own face. So when Lalita is witnessing all this, she's drinking the sight of Krishna's face, and no matter how much she drinks, she's not able to sort of get satisfied drinking Krishna's beauty. So text 7 is actually Lalita Saki. And in the next text, we'll see actually that is being described as Vishaka Saki. So one by one, Shukadev Goswami is describing all of these gopis and how the right wing gopi immediately approach Krishna, but the left wing gopis they stay back and they're little fiery. So they don't immediately approach Krishna. They have their ego and they want Krishna to come and pacify them. They have the transcendental ego, I must add. They have a transcendental ego. So like this, you see in rasa is not static. There's this really dynamic. There's this like ebbs and flows. It rises and then it drops and it rises. Emotions rise and it drops. So it's really dynamic. So even in music, you see there is this concept of tension and resolution. For any of you here who are musicians, you see there's tension and resolution. So what that means is in harmony, music is classified into groups known as scales. It's like groups of notes that are classified in scales. And in those scales, there's a root element which defines the mood of that whole scale. So the root of whatever that scale, or in the Vedic system, there's ragas. Each raga has a specific mood. So the root of that raga or scale defines the whole sort of mood. And even among that family of notes, although there is a root, the home sort of emotion, there's one note which is known as the dominant note, the dominant five or the dominant note, which sort of departs from the standard narrative that the uh, home scale defines. So that note departs from that standard mood or standard narratives. It's like little opposed. It's called dominant, and that causes some amount of tension. Beautiful tension, though, because it's still part of the same family of notes. So it creates this tension, meaning like a departure from the home feeling, and that creates this much sense of anticipated relief when there's a departed sort of, and then when the tension is resolved, when the note goes back to the root note, then that is known as resolution. So there's tension and resolution. So even in rasa there is sambhoga and viyoga. Sambhoga is when all the gopis and all the devotees they unite with Krishna, there's union. But then if there's only union, it becomes boring. So then that's why Krishna leaves in their midst to heighten the tension. That's the tension we were talking about in music. The dominant notes, they cause this dominant sense of music. Like certain notes are little has a more dominant present. They depart from the home flavor of the scale. So like that Krishna departs, creating a more tension. And then when Krishna comes back to the fold of the gopis, there is resolution. There's tension and resolution. Like that, there is sambhoga and viyoga. Viyoga is like Vipralambha, where Krishna leaves the gopis in this Vipralambha or this sense of separation, mood of separation. And all the gopis are yearning and pining to be with Krishna, and they're lamenting their own misfortune. And that further heightens their sense of their rasa, their desire to be with Krishna. They're burning in desire to be with Krishna. And we discussed earlier how there's like Gopakanyas and Devakanyas, the Rishichari gopis and the Shrutichari gopis, and some of the gopis couldn't leave their homes, and those were the sadhana siddha gopis. They were left at home, they couldn't leave Krishna. And the acharyas described that they still hadn't fully perfected their rasa, so they couldn't leave. The perfected gopis, the Nitya Siddha, eternally liberated gopis could leave their homes and they could be in the fold of Krishna. So it's interesting to see how the rasa is like not static; it glows, ebbs and flows. Once I was in Vrindavan. This was, I think, part of Sachinand Swami's Holiness Sachinand Swami's retreat. There was a kirtan. He was doing this japa retreat, of which one day was a kirtan day, and he actually left in the middle of a kirtan to go to nearby village to a home of a Vrajvasi. And there were a few devotees who were following, and I happened to be a fortunate one who followed Sachin Swami into a hut of a Vrajvasi. He entered the hut, and other devotees were sort of peeked their head in to see what's going on, and he was talking to a local Brajavasi family, and he was talking to a girl there, uh, who was probably about 14 or 15, and this Brajavasi family, they grew up in this transcendental tradition, and the girl was they were having this discussion with Satyenu Swami, and she was telling that once a gopi asked Radharani, "What do you like, to be with Krishna or to not be with Krishna?" And you might think it's a no-brainer, right? To be with Krishna. But Radharani said, "No, I don't like to be with Krishna." And the other gopi asked, like, "Why?" So she said, "When I'm with Krishna, I only see one Krishna. When I'm not with Krishna, everywhere I see Krishna. In my mood of separation, she becomes so mad with in this mood of separation, this Vipralamba. Everywhere she just sees millions and thousands, millions of Krishnas everywhere. So Viyoga, Vipralamba is more relishable for devotees like this. Of course, that doesn't mean we intentionally sort of remove ourselves away from Krishna. So I like to just conclude with this one point that this our line, this Gaudiya Vaishnav line, is a really unique line. You see, there's different Abrahamic traditions, and among the in the Abrahamic traditions, they worship Krishna in awe and reverence. And even among Vaishnav traditions, there's a lot of Vaishnav traditions they worship Krishna in either Vishnu or Krishna, and especially Vishnu in the mood of awe and reverence. And there are some sampradayas like the Pushti Marg, they worship baby Krishna, that is in a more parental. But you won't see anywhere Radha and Krishna being worshipped except for this Gaudiya line. Other sampradayas, the Kumar sampradaya, or maybe in the Alvar tradition, there is worship of Radha and Krishna in the sense of conjugal. There is like Rukmini and Krishna, that is Swakiya rasa, married sort of, where Krishna and Rukmini are married. But this Parakiya rasa, Radha and Krishna, is really strange. Parakiya is like a lover, paramour. You're having a affair with someone who's not your wife, someone else. Anyway, so this is Parakiya rasa. So this is such a unique thing only found in this Gaudiya tradition. So our whole acharyas, this tradition founded by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they brought this Parakya Rasa. So this is a really unique flavor. And what is really unique about this flavor is that all the gopis basically um, they're sort of associating with Krishna in a more conjugal rasa or a paramour, like a Parakya rasa. But one might think this is like a really, like in a material sense, this is not seen really on a high platform to have a illicit affair with someone. But in the spiritual platform, this is so pure. And why this is so pure is because the gopis, they don't have any tinge of envy. What that means is when the gopis, in addition to wanting to be with Krishna, they're eager to push other gopis to the forefront. And they're pushing other gopis to the front. If they see another gopi satisfies Krishna more, they'll try to promote that gopi. In the mundane sense, we don't see this happening. It's considered really low class in the material world. If this happens, if a wife is sort of trying to sort of push other women to be with her husband, or if her husband is trying to sort of send other men to his wife, it's like a really abominable situation in the material world. But in the spiritual world, it's the other way. It's so pure. There's no tinge of envy or lust or anything. So the other gopis, they see that this Radharani is satisfying Krishna. They push Radharani to the fore. Like, you be with Krishna because I know you'll please Krishna with your service attitude. But then when Radharani is with Krishna, she doesn't see her own transcendental preeminence. She's thinking of other gopis. And and I'll conclude this with this one point, that if you see in the previous chapter, towards the end, the gopis all got together and they were doing singing glories of Krishna. And that is Sankirtan, that is Harinam Sankirtan. And when the gopis did Harinam Sankirtan, that's when Krishna came back to their fold. So and that's why in this age, the Yoga Dharma is Harinam Sankirtan. That is the only process. It said that Harinam, Harinam, Harinam Eva Kevalam, Kalu Nasteva Nasteva. There's no other way, no other way, no other way. In this age of Kali, then they do the process of Harinam Sankirtan. In other religious traditions, also in Christianity, also you see hallowed be thy name, right? Their name is being sung. Muslims also chant their Lord's names, Buddhists, and so you see in every tradition the Lord's name is really prime. there's Harinam Sankirtan, but there's another thing we see, a trend among the gopis, that in addition to congregationally chanting glories of Krishna, they're also really eager to push other gopis in the front. And that is what the mood of book distribution is. Devotees, we are not really concerned only with our union with Krishna, our guru, our this, our that, our programs, our advancement. We go out on the street instead of going directly to the temple. We go out on the streets. We take the books and we try to bring other souls, lost souls, who've lost their connection with Krishna, and we try to push them to Krishna, and that's the mood of book distribution. Anyway, I'll conclude with this point. I want to leave some time for some reflections and some comments, questions. Anybody has anything? If not, I can always go on longer. But at this point, we'd like to see if we have any comments or questions, reflections. Um, I'm also reading our chat. Um, so Damodar Priya Dasi. Oh, that's our Andrea. Is that your new name? Congratulations on your new name. Damodar Priya Devi Dasi. Beautiful name. So what is feminine anger or temper? So that's the man. That's the feminine pride. It's a combination of pride and anger. So Radharani has this man. Every time Krishna sort of leaves her association, she gets overcome with this anger towards Krishna, and then and then Krishna is on his hands and knees, begging and pleading to take her back in his association, and he's on his knees pleading to Radharani, please accept me. And so Krishna becomes really subservient to Radharani, and that's when Radharani gets really satisfied. So that's the feminine anger. Any other comments or questions? Actually, we have one. I see Adi Purusha Prabhu getting ready. Adi Purusha Prabhu, did you have something to say? Okay. Um, if you don't have anything, I had something to share actually. Maybe I can share my screen. Um, till then, let's see if we have. Is Ananda Bihari Prabhu not in our discussion today? Krishna Daya Prabhu has his hand up. Yes, Prabhu. Please share your valuable inputs. I don't know if that's an accident or you meant to sort of raise your
No,
hand.
no,
Yes,
no.
Prabhu.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu,
Thank you, Prabhu.
especially detailing each gopi. Just a question, like in the Kumar Sampradaya or the Nimbark Sampradaya, so they also worship Radha and Krishna, right? I mean, in Jagannath Puri, we saw in their mathas, so they have, in fact, sitting Radha Krishna deities. So, sorry if I'm taking it too technical.
Yes, Prabhu. You might know better, Prabhu. From what I know, that our Gauriya line is the only line which worships Radha Krishna in a more parakya, conjugal lover way. And the thing is, all these sampradayas, of course, there's a lot of sub branches, and over the years, there's also elements that are borrowed from other sampradaya. So even our own Gauriya Sampradaya, it's called Brahma Madhva Gauriya Sampradaya. So if you see the Madhva tradition is different from our Gauriya tradition. So even in the
Yes.
Kumara Sampradaya, you're talking about one temple. We'll have to further see what specific flavor of Kumar Sampradaya uh,
Yeah.
who is their Kula Guru and things like that. So, but
Because
you
Mahaprabhu borrowed two principles from each.
right, right,
So
Prabhu.
from the Kumara Sampradaya, like what he took, any reference from the two principles?
So I don't explicitly remember two principles, but I know from the Sri Vaishnav Sampradaya he borrowed the deity worship, and Vaishnav Seva from the Sri Sampradaya, and
Yeah.
uh, so each of the four Sampradaya Chaitanya Mahaprabhu we borrowed two principles from each, and this is like a So that's why our sampradayas are reinforced. Like we see reinforced concrete steel, like that. Our sampradayas are reinforced sampradaya. He borrowed two principles. So from
Yeah.
the Sri Sampradaya, I know that it's Vaishnav Seva and deity worship. But I forget from the Kumar Sampradaya. Do you know, Prabhu? Krishnadaya Prabhu, do you know which
Yeah.
principle?
One thing is, like, if I'm correct, like, so this comes the Gopi Bhav he took from the Kumar Sampradaya. The Sri Sampradaya, like the deity worship comes from Madhva, Madhva Sampradaya. So deity worship and condemning the Mayavad philosophy.
Condemning the Mayavadis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Sri Sampradaya is like Sharanagati and then complete like servant of servant, and then serving Guru in the complete surrender, something to anyway. That's
Thank you.
off topic. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's such a helpful, yeah. Like Krishnadaya Prabhu saying each two principles from each of the sampradaya. So, any other points we have? Anything to add? Um, we are missing our Ananda Bihari Prabhu. I think he has to sort of attend to something. There is one description that is said that uh, these gopis, when they acted, they were not acting out of lust, because it is said that Cupid, who is known as Madan, he doesn't have any domain in the transcendental realm of pastimes of gopis and Krishna. He doesn't have an entry into these pastimes. So Cupid is known as Madan. So it is said that Cupid once was really proud that he has the power of bewildering the whole world, and he can make the whole world look really silly, because he strikes his bow into his arrow into the hearts of living entities, and they become bewildered in love, and they start acting really foolish. So Cupid, Madan, became really proud, like, ha ha, look at me, I'm so powerful. So then once Cupid, when he was really proud, then Krishna walked by, and then when Cupid looked at Krishna, Cupid became like, ah, he felt so completely in love and bewildered when he looked at Krishna. So then Cupid's pride was broken. So that's why Krishna is known as Madan Mohana. Cupid is Madana. So Krishna is known as Madan Mohana. Shri Shri Radha Muridhar ki jai. So Krishna is known as Madan Mohana. So Krishna became a little proud, like, aha, look at me. I sort of defeated Cupid. So then as Krishna was going by, Radharani was then passing by. So then when Krishna saw Radharani, Krishna was like, ah. So then Krishna became completely sort of overcome. So that's why Radharani is known as Madan Mohana Mohini, the one who bewildered the bewilderer of Cupid, Madana. So, so this displays the exalted position of our Srimati Radharani, how she can even bewilder Krishna, who can bewilder Cupid, who's Madana, who's Cupid personified. Um, I don't know who the host is for this, but I think in the absence of our Ananda Bihari Prabhu, I'll assume that position. Is there any other points? Krishna Daya Prabhu, in his comment section, he says, in separation, we see Krishna everywhere. And then Chamuna Jaya Prabhu expressing her gratitude. Bhakta Billy, Betty's iPhone.
I'm
So, and
here, Godruma Prabhu, wonderful class. Thank you. I'm so sorry for being a little bit absent. I have something urgent to deal with, but I was listening very attentively. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Wonderful class. And thanks for letting everyone to speak. Krishna Daya Prabhu, thank you very much. Your comments are always very intelligent. It's nice to have devotees like Krishna Daya Prabhu, right? That is one thing.
Krishna Daya Prabhu makes sure our Bhagavatam classes are fully sort of potent and in with his valuable inputs.
He keeps it legit.
Yeah, he keeps us on track.
Right. Thank you, Krishna Daya Prabhu. Okay. Jamuna Jai has given us a big heart. Thank you, Jamuna Jai. Okay, I guess we can wrap it up. Thank you, wonderful class. Godruma Prabhu. Thank you so much. Amita Kishori Didi, thank you for the darshan. Thanks everyone for participating. See you again tomorrow. We may or may not have Dalal Guranga with us tomorrow, but let's see what Krishna has in store. Have a wonderful Monday. Drive safely. Remember Krishna. See Krishna everywhere. And come again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Srila